Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a story that feels like it's been plucked right out of a magical realm. Imagine this, you're 14, it's the start of summer vacation, and you stumble upon something that changes everything. That's exactly what happened to Eddie Evergreen. Eddie's a pretty regular kid, short brown hair, always in his favorite red t-shirt and khaki shorts. But he's got something that's not so regular. A strange old compass he found in his grandpa's attic. This wasn't just any compass, though. It was heavy, made of a dark, swirling wood, and instead of a needle, a shard of what looked like pure sunlight spun inside its glass case. For weeks, Eddie just thought it was a cool, broken antique. It never pointed north. In fact, it seemed to point randomly, spinning wildly whenever he was near anything old. He'd tested on vintage comic books, his dad's old vinyl records, you name it. The compass would hum with a faint energy, the golden shard inside glowing brighter. Eddie's best friend, Harper Lane, was the only one who knew about it. Harper's the complete opposite of Eddie. Where he's all about gut feelings and adventure, she's all about data and logic. With her neat blonde bob, round glasses, and a tablet that's practically glued to her hand, she was convinced there was a scientific explanation. She theorized it was reacting to magnetic fields or decaying radioactive isotopes in old materials. Eddie just shrugged and said, it's magic. Their summer project became the compass conundrum. They spent days in the local library. Eddie, holding the compass over ancient maps, while Harper cross-referenced historical records on her tablet. The compass would buzz and glow, but the needle just spun in circles, never settling. It was frustrating. One sweltering afternoon, they decided to explore the old Blackwood forest at the edge of town. A place filled with local legends of strange lights and forgotten paths. Eddie figured if anything was old enough to get a reaction, it would be in there. As they ventured deeper, the familiar scent of pine and damp earth surrounded them. Sunlight struggled to pierce the thick canopy of leaves overhead. Eddie held out the compass. For the first time, the golden shard stopped spinning. It locked into place, pointing directly ahead with a steady, brilliant light. Golden sparks began to fizz and pop from the compass, like tiny, silent fireworks. "War Harper, look," Eddie whispered, his eyes wide. Harper peered over her glasses, her analytical expression melting into pure astonishment. Her tablet's sensors were going haywire. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts, Eddie. This is impossible." The compass was now pulling him forward, its light illuminating a path that wasn't there. Moments before, a faint trail of shimmering moss that snaked between ancient, twisted oak trees. A pell, like the forest itself was inviting them in. Hesitantly, they followed. The air grew cooler, quieter. The only sound was the crunch of leaves under their feet and the soft hum of the compass. The trail led them to a clearing they'd never seen before, and in its center stood a single, colossal stone archway covered in glowing, unfamiliar symbols. It looked impossibly old, like it had been there since the beginning of time. As they approached, the symbols on the archway began to glow with the same golden light as the compass. The air crackled with energy. Eddie stood before the arch, the compass buzzing in his hand like a captured hummingbird. "What is this place?" Harper breathed, furiously tapping on her tablet, trying to identify the symbols. "They're not in any known database. They're not human." Eddie felt an irresistible pull, a sense of belonging. As if the compass was a key and this archway was the lock. He took a deep breath, raised the compass high, and stepped forward. The moment the compass crossed the threshold of the archway, a wave of golden light erupted, engulfing everything. It wasn't blinding, but warm and welcoming. For a split second, Eddie saw swirling galaxies and whispering forests, all contained within the light. When the light faded, they weren't in Blackwood Forest anymore. The sky was a shade of deep indigo, dotted with 2 shimmering moons. Strange, bioluminescent plants cast a soft, ethereal glow on the ground around them. The air was sweet with the scent of flowers they had never seen. Towering, crystal-like trees spiraled towards the sky, and in the distance, they could hear the faint sound of music, like wind chimes playing a hauntingly beautiful melody. Harper stared, her tablet held loosely in her hand. Forgotten. Logically, she stammered, this is not possible. Eddie grinned, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and pure, unadulterated excitement. The compass in his hand was now calm, its golden light softly pulsing like a steady heartbeat. It had brought them here. Wherever here was. Their AW was interrupted by a rustling in the glowing bushes nearby. Out stepped a creature that looked like a fox made of woven moonlight and shadows. With large, intelligent eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. It tilted its head, let out a series of soft chimes, and then gestured with its snout back towards the path. It seemed to be waiting for them. 2. Eddie looked at Harper, his expression asking the silent question. What do we do? Harper, ever the pragmatist, was already recalibrating her mindset. "K," she said, taking a deep breath and pushing her glasses up her nose. New data. Unknown ecosystem, apparent sentient life, and a trans-dimensional portal. Let's gather more information. She gave Eddie a small, determined smile. Looks like your grandpa's broken compass works just fine. Eddie looked from the mystical fox to the incredible new world stretching out before them. His ordinary summer had just become the adventure of a lifetime. The compass had pointed them to a new world, and this was only the beginning. He knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, that they were meant to be here. Together, with Eddie's courage and Harper's intellect, they followed the celestial fox deeper into the twilight forest, ready to uncover the secrets of this magical realm and the true purpose of the glowing golden compass. What mysteries would they unravel? Eddie just smiled, his eyes fixed on the pulsating light of the compass. It's more than just trees, Harper. I can feel it. He took a step forward, and the forest floor beneath his feet didn't crunch with leaves. It hummed. A low, resonant vibration that seemed to travel up his spine. As they ventured deeper, the forest began to change. The familiar sounds of birds and rustling leaves faded, replaced by a profound silence. It was a quiet that felt ancient, deliberate. Harper tapped on her tablet, her brow furrowed. The energy signatures are organizing, she whispered. It's not chaotic, it's structured. Suddenly, the ground before them shuddered. With a groan of grinding stone, a section of the forest floor descended, revealing a staircase leading into darkness. There. The air that rose from below was cool and smelled of damp earth and something else. Something like ozone, the scent of dormant power. The compass in Eddie's hand pulsed brighter, its needles spinning wildly before settling, pointing straight down. He looked at Harper, his expression firm. This is it. The real path begins here. Harper swallowed hard, her usual confidence wavering for just a moment. She took a deep breath, clutching her tablet. Okay. But if we run into giant spiders, I'm blaming you. Together, they descended into the quiet unknown, leaving the familiar world of sun and sky behind. The underground system was unlike anything they could have imagined. It wasn't a cave or a ruin. It felt like the inside of a massive, sleeping machine. The walls were smooth, carved from a stone that seemed to absorb the light. There were no levers, no buttons, no obvious controls. Harper ran her hand along a wall, her tablet worry as it scanned the material. This alloy. It's impossible. It shouldn't exist. Eddie, guided by the compass, walked to the center of the first chamber. It was a wide, circular room with no visible exits. "Now what?" Harper muttered, looking around. Eddie remembered the feeling from the forest, the sense of being watched, of being tested. It wasn't about force. He closed his eyes, focusing on his intent. He pictured a door, a way forward. As if in response, a section of the floor lit up beneath his feet, a glowing platform of light. He stepped onto it without hesitation. The moment his weight settled, the platform hummed and began to rise, lifting him towards the ceiling. "Eddie!" Harper shouted, rushing over. Another platform lit up for her, and she quickly stepped on. The journey became a series of these quiet tests. They weren't puzzles of logic, but of presence and intent. They reached a chasm that seemed impossibly wide. There was no bridge. Harper began calculating trajectories, looking for anchor points. But Eddie just looked across. He knew they had to cross. He took a determined step into the void, and as his foot came down, a solid bridge of light shimmered into existence beneath it. It was a test of faith. In another chamber, strange symbols would flash on the walls, not as a code to be deciphered, but as an acknowledgement. They appeared only after a choice was made, a path taken, as if the system was saying, "Correct. Proceed." The compass had changed its behavior to it. No longer pointed relentlessly forward. Instead, it would pause at junctions, its golden light dimming and pulsing softly, as if waiting for them to understand, to make a conscious decision. They weren't just following a map. They were learning a new language, the language of this place. They had to think like the system, to anticipate its quiet, responsive nature. It wasn't about surviving the environment anymore. It was about understanding it. They reached a vast, spherical chamber that felt like a point of transition. On one side was the entrance they'd come through, a tunnel that still faintly smelled of the forest, or on the other side was a gate, sealed shut, pulsing with a deep blue energy. As they stood in the center, holographic images flickered to life around them. They saw the forest above, not as a natural wilderness, but as a complex, living construct. They saw how it shifted and changed, how it guided some and repelled others. A filter. Harper stared, her mouth agape. The forest! It was never the destination, she breathed. It was the first test. A way, designed to keep people out, to only let in those who could. Listen. The images showed travelers over centuries, turning back in frustration, baffled by the shifting trees and dead ends. Only those who moved with patience and intent, like Eddie, could ever find the entrance. The forest wasn't just a lock. It was a guardian, a living labyrinth protecting the true secret hidden below. The system wasn't just buried. It was shielded by a layer of nature that was itself a part of the machine, via. The blue gate before them began to glow brighter, the energy humming with anticipation. It seemed to be scanning them, not their bodies, but their journey, their choices, their commitment. The compass in Eddie's hand flared, and a single, brilliant beam of golden light shot out, striking the center of the gate. With a sound like a deep, resonant chime. The gate dissolved into a waterfall of light, revealing a final, descending passage. This new path felt different. The air was charged, and the silence was no longer passive. It felt aware, awake. The descent led them to a vast core space. In the center of the immense cavern floated a colossal sphere of interlocking rings and crystalline structures. It was dark and dormant, but as they stepped into the room, lines of light began to race across its surface. This was the heart of the system. It wasn't responding to their movement anymore. It was responding to their presence, their commitment to having come this far. It had been waiting. Eddie looked at the sphere, then at Harper, a sense of awe and responsibility washing over him. This was so much bigger than finding a hidden place. As they approached the core, the final mechanisms began to activate. The rings of the sphere started to rotate, slowly at first, then faster, building a symphony of light and sound. The entire cavern vibrated with power being unleashed, a power that had slept for eons. Symbols and star charts blazed across the walls, mapping out not just their world, but entire galaxies. They weren't just in a machine, too. They were inside an ancient celestial map, an engine of untold potential. Eddie and Harper stood at the precipice, watching the system fully awaken. It became overwhelmingly clear in that moment. This wasn't the end of their quest. Finding this place, waking it up. That wasn't the prize. It was the key. The journey wasn't meant to end here in this chamber. It was meant to begin something far, far larger. The season closes on this incredible revelation. The system is unlocked. The path forward is now illuminated, stretching out into the cosmos. Thor, as they knew it, is gone, replaced by a universe of possibilities. What comes next is an open question, and the real adventure is only just beginning.